Welcome back, everybody, to America's Mom. I told you guys today was going to be very, very special. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute here. But before we get going, this is an interesting little announcement that just hit the airwaves this morning is that Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to have his contract renewed. He has been dropped officially by the Dolphins after just 1 year. And of course, I mean, for me, I thought immediately, this doesn't have anything to do with, I don't know, the diddler, does it? Doesn't have anything to do with the videos circulating around of him abusing, I don't know, a famous pop singer. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating. Who knows exactly what's going on? I don't watch football, and I certainly don't watch Odell Beckham Jr. So I have no idea. You guys will have to drop it in the comments. Is he a good player? I mean, I have no idea. Is this shock and awe to you that the Dolphins would drop him? Is he, an exceptional athlete still? What's going on there? I don't think that his athleticism has anything to do with why he's being dropped. I really don't. We're right on the heels also of Jay-Z officially being named as he's being accused by a woman who was 13 years old at the time of being, we're live, so I can't say the word, but you all know, being essayed by him and by Sean Puffy Combs together. So it just keeps getting more and more interesting. And it's really interesting with Jay Z. He had the audacity after those accusations are made to show up with his 12-year-old daughter at the premiere of her film, The Lion King. She's the voice on The Lion King. And I just thought, what a scumbag. Of course, he would use the innocence and sweetness of his daughter and try to hook his wagon to that so people don't look at him with such disdain. But my understanding is there's just too many videos. There's too, they recorded it all, they filmed it all. There's too many testimonies, there's too many videos. They're sunk. And I guess we're all just kind of sitting here watching to see what's going to happen. You've got very public accusations, of course. Jamie Foxx is saying that Diddy is the one who poisoned him and tried to kill him. I mean, this story is just so crazy and out of control. But the reason I'm talking about this just a little bit as we get going this morning, please make sure you're hitting the share button. This is going to be an interview that everybody needs to see. I'm going to break all your illusions today. We're going to break all of our frailties today. We're going to realize just how strong we are, that we can handle the information that the federal government's trying to keep from us. We don't need everything redacted. The American people can handle it. And then once we hear, once we learn, then we need to demand justice. And maybe that's what they're afraid of with us, that once we know what's going on, we're going to demand justice. I hope we're going to demand justice. I'm a little nervous when I watch people in New Jersey not, having mass assemblies right now and having, gatherings at their capitals or whatever when you have drones flying in the sky that you don't know where they came from. And last night on our Twitter, we showed you the video of the drones are now spraying stuff out of them. So I guess I get a little bit nervous. Is mankind, are Americans still alive and awake, or are we too captivated by these little gadgets that we talked about at length yesterday with Matt Ronke? I don't know. I hope I said his name right, but you guys can go back and watch it. He was great. It was an awesome interview with him in the mystery yesterday. We are not living in times where you get to just sit back and watch Netflix and eat your bonbons anymore and live off the government. We are not living in those times. Too much exposure has happened and is continuing to unfold in front of us. And for me too, like when we talk about Odell and the whole NFL, fiasco as it is anyway, you guys realize they're going to have Beyonce do the halftime show? Again, it's just like a smack in your face again, a smack in your face, constantly. They're gaslighting us, literally putting people in front of us that we know have been involved in nefarious behavior and telling us just to take it. So, with that in mind, as we get into our very, very special interview today, just remember, I guess I'm starting to understand a little bit better now. When I used to hear the words, it's all a psyop, I was like, that's a psyop. I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm a mom. I'm, a suburban mom raising my kids, Christian. I love my country. I think I'm a patriot. And then all of my illusions started getting just broken. And I was having to face the reality of the government that I live under in America. And that's been hard. 2017 is really when this journey really grabbed me by the neck and just started turning my head, making me see what was happening all around me. And just for those of you who have been on the same journey, I know so many of you have been, all of these mothers who have risen up and have said enough. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we've got to check in our gut. And we're tired of being gaslit by politicians, by school board members, by administrators. So many of you during the COVID era sat back and you didn't sit back, you rallied because you were watching the public school system use a flu to abuse your children. And you said, no, we're not going to have that because you did the research. You knew masks didn't work. You knew that the federal government was paying these schools to do that to your children, not because they believed in what they were doing, but because they were receiving ESSER funds. So you're awake. We've all have a level of awakeness right now. And I really want to take you to the next level. And I can't do that just by telling you about it. I have to bring somebody on who has lived it, who has had this unbelievable experience and has been talking about this, you guys, since the 90s. This is not new. She is not new to the conversation. She didn't just show up yesterday. She has been loudly talking about what happened to her and to her family for years now, at least since 1996, might be a little bit before that even. And I, again, stumbled upon this incredible conversation with Ted Gunderson at the John Birch Society. It was filmed, and I stumbled on it in 2017 on YouTube. And he started talking about this woman named Cathy O'Brien. And I was like, wait a minute, what? What has our CIA been doing? Who is this Cathy O'Brien lady? How in the world are they getting away with? How are they grabbing up children? What are they doing? And you guys, it was forever broken for me. I could never look at my government the same, and I realized why Thomas Paine said government is but a necessary evil. We have such a duty and obligation, and we talk about this on America's Mom all the time, to hold our government accountable, and we haven't been doing it. So many times we get tired, we acquiesce, we just want to get back to our lives, but there are people out there who have not done that. They have made it their mission to tell the truth no matter what it costs them. And our guest today, Cathy O'Brien, is one of those people. So, again, I want everybody to hit the share button, share this to your stories, start tagging your friends and family. And everybody needs to watch this interview because, again, this is not, the government has kept so much from us because they think we can't handle it. And because they're also fully engaged in these practices still. And so we're going to get right into it because I don't want to waste one moment of this woman's time. She's been on a mission to say exactly what the government has been doing, why it is that we can't have nice things like freedom in America, the ploys, the agencies, what they've been doing, and what actually happened in 1946. We really have to go all the way back to Operation Paperclip to understand why we're in the situation we're in America right now, where you have the FBI violating and abusing its citizens and feeling that they have the authority to do it. You have the CIA hosting covert operations, again going after American people. CIA was created to be abroad, not to target American citizens, but that's not what's happened. And then of course these wild stories of brainwashing, of erasing memory, of what's called the MK Ultra program. And I'm not going to expound on this any further. Cathy O'Brien has spent the last, I believe it's almost 35 years now, telling the public what happened. She is committed to healing other people and helping them to heal who have endured the same travesties that she has, the same incredible abuse that she has sustained. But one of the reasons that I wanted Cathy to come on, and by the way, this is not a conversation I ever thought I would get to have. When I saw her in 2017 telling her story, I thought, what would it be like to sit across from this woman? Well, here we are, Friday the 13th, December 2024. And that little whisper of a prayer to God is coming to fruition. So forgive me, guys. This is just an unbelievable day. And I hope again that you guys will really dial in and listen take notes and just know what you're about to be told is the truth and nothing but the truth. Cathy O'Brien, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today on America's Mom.
Wow, thank you. What a beautiful, beautiful, soulful introduction, and also a great commentary of exactly what is happening all across the nation as people's eyes are opening up to the reality of a criminal faction of government that's been in control for a long, long time, targeting our children through the education system, through media, through every aspect that they can extend their reach into, including so-called child protective services.
Mm.
And people are realizing it now. They're opening their eyes. Moms, wow, we got the power. There's nothing more powerful than a mother's love. And mothers are making a huge difference all across the nation as people wake up to realize that we share this planet with some very dark, negative energy force people who have been hell bent on manipulating our minds and lives for a long time. What we're seeing today with the Diddy tapes and everything else, what we're seeing today isn't new. What's new is that we're seeing it. And I was born into it back in 1957 and already being trafficked to the Epstein Island of its time as a little bitty toddler. So I have deep insight into this. And yes, you're right. This is something that we all need to face because we got to effectively protect our children going forward.
Kathy, let's start with your story first. So here you are. How does this happen? Okay. I know that you're probably paying attention to this. Annika, and I apologize, I don't know her last name. I also saw her testimony in 2018. It was the first time she had put it out publicly. She was just on Patrick Bet David talking about she finally named who her primary handler was, David Rothschild. And I watched her story about how she was introduced as a child, same as you, as a toddler, as a baby, into these elitist pedophile rings. How does that happen? How did it happen to you? How did you get involved and your family be involved in this? Let's just start right from the beginning.
Well, I am a survivor of CIA, MKultra mind control. I was used on a White House Pentagon level. I was deep in the swamp among these perpetrators who steal elections and fund their globalist agenda with drug and human trafficking across open borders. These people have been using mind control to usher in a slave society agenda. The formula for mind control is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, or the world. Trauma is the basis of it. And it had been found through Himmler research with that there's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while their brain is still forming. So this pedophile agenda that's being pushed is a mind control agenda, and children are targeted just like I was when I was born into a multi-generational incest-based family all the way back in 1957. My father had been sexually abused and ritually abused. My mother had been sexually abused and trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. These secret societies is where secrets on mind control have been kept for generations. The secrecy is how they operate because they know knowledge is our defense against mind control. This is knowledge that people need. It's truth that makes us free. And when we understand, you mentioned Project Paperclip, when we understand that in the wake of World War II, we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the United States through Project Paperclip, and with them came this formula for mind control. And also came the secrecy, because by 1947, we had the CIA was formed, the National Security Act was put in place, and that National Security Act has allowed for the sexualization of our children, allowed for this criminal globalist slave society agenda to move forward to the point that it has. And we need truth, so this is a wonderful opportunity to get to bring that truth to light and open people's eyes to truth that truly does make us free.
I want people to know that there was a congressional inquiry because I can just hear it now. I mean, this is hard stuff for people to believe. The government took a toddler, groomed, not just you, many others apparently also. They took these toddlers, they took these babies, they broke them, traumatized them in the worst possible ways imaginable. And the intention for you in your particular situation was to fracture you so much that you would be able to be living a normal life during the day or in society, but also serving as a collaborator for gathering information as a honeypot from political officials, whether that be you guys. I mean, can you share with us some of the people that you were um, I don't know if it's a selling of or a handing off to. I mean, it's a slave system. I get that. I'm so concerned about the word choice I use because I don't want to minimize anything at all. This is the most disturbing uh, practice I that is imaginable, and it was done and orchestrated and funded by the American government. And so, what did that look like for you, and what was their intention specifically with you?
It was actually a globalist shadow government that was operating behind the scene, eroding our constitutional values of freedom and justice for all. So, my father's sexual abuse began in infancy. And I couldn't think to know what he was doing was wrong, but we all need to understand our own mind brain function. When trauma occurs, our conscious mind freezes in fright, and then our subconscious mind is wide open to being easily led and manipulated without a conscious mind filter. Our subconscious just takes information in. And that's how people have been manipulated for generations, because our subconscious drives our thoughts, our perceptions, and ultimately our actions. My father's sexual abuse was shutting down neuron pathways in my brain, raising my suggestibility so that I would just take information in and do exactly as I was told. His sexual abuse extended into child pornography, and then it extended into trafficking me to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, where these local politicians and law enforcement hung out and were, being blackmailed through pedophile blackmail operations that have been going on, again, my whole life. And my father was caught sending child pornography of me through the U.S. mails in 1960. And the local politician that I had been trafficked to as a little bitty toddler was approached my father and told him he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would agree to sell me into the CIA's MKultra mind control project. My father did, and we're already seeing how national security was being used in the courtroom to manipulate and allow for the proliferation of pedophilia and for the crimes against humanity that have gone on for so long and eroded our system. This local politician was Gerald Ford. He's the same Gerald Ford who went on to become the unelected president of the United States. Gerald Ford, as his political career escalated, so too did my victimization in MKultra, until I was used on a White House Pentagon level. I was used by Democrats and Republicans both, because this new world order, this globalist agenda, has nothing to do with political parties. It has to do with who complies or who can be coerced or blackmailed into complying with this adverse slave society agenda, where a handful of global puppet masters at the very top make all the money while we do all the work. And that's the scenario that was being created in Nazi Germany. We didn't win World War II. We brought it over here. Mind control continued right here in the United States and around the world, because again, this is for a new world order agenda, and this means it's global. So these globalists are the problem, and we follow the money. It goes to a handful of the same self-appointed, self-anointed leaders over and over again, who have been manipulating our minds while they meet in secrecy and decide how they're going to um, use MKultra on the global population. That MKultra, again, involves trauma. Every time trauma occurs, we all become more suggestible and easily led. We all experienced a severe trauma of mind control masked as a virus in 2020. And people learned how quickly they become susceptible to a repetitive media narrative when they were told, mask up, get the injection, social distance. Look what
When
we
you
did to our children.
when you saw this happening, did you know immediately I mean, I think it was around January we started catching wind of it in California. When you saw this, did you know immediately what was happening?
Exactly. Yes, because it had every component of MKultra mind control to it. Masks are used in MKultra because they depersonalize. They inhibit oxygen to the brain necessary for critical analysis free thought, and they muffle voices. But this depersonalization is an important part for us to know too, because when we messed up our children and put them behind plexiglass, they didn't know who they were. Children are developing already anyway, and we set them way back. Depersonalization causes an identity disorder, not a gender disorder. And it was manipulated into a gender disorder to continue a sexualization of our children that took the pedophile agenda to the next level of transgenderism, which is also a depopulation agenda to depopulate the global population to a more manageable size, because these puppet masters at the top realized that they were losing control over people because they cannot stop the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. And they certainly can't stop the mothers who were getting really mad at what they were seeing being done to their children.
Timothy, I want to go back when you're a child and you're experiencing this. Were you aware of what was happening to you? And was there anybody in your life that seemed to be concerned or asking you questions about what was happening? I mean, and I know that this goes beyond just abuse at home, but I can't help but think there must have been some sign that something was going on. Do you remember what it felt like at that time, what you were thinking?
I remember what it was like. And as an infant, my brain was already recognizing the pain and suffocation of my father's abuse. So it was shutting down neuron pathways around that traumatic memory and shoving it deep into my subconscious. That's what repressed memory is. That's what compartmentalized memory is. So I couldn't think to know what he was doing was wrong, but my brain knew. And the thing is, we got this amazing mind brain function that tries to safeguard us from extreme trauma by shutting it off and repressing it so the rest of the mind can develop and function normally. This is something that if we're consciously aware of it, we can heal from immediately by reopening those neuron pathways in the brain, reclaiming access to that part when we consciously deal with the trauma that we've experienced. But as little bitty children, we often don't even have a place for that information because it's impossible to know that how to process something as horrific as sexual abuse and ritual abuse. And my grandparents were involved, the local politicians, law enforcement were involved. Once my father sold me into the project, he was flown to Boston, Massachusetts, where he was trained by Cardinal Law how to raise me in the project. Cardinal Law was caught up in the infamous Catholic child abuse scandal that came to light. Everybody can research that for themselves and see how the pedophile priests were allowed to continue and go unprosecuted because they were involved in this globalist agenda. And once my father was trained in that, I was subjected to occult ritual. So already I'm showing there was no one to turn to, no one in my family, no one in my relatives, no one in my community with the church that couldn't turn to local law enforcement, no politicians. There was no one who cared to help me. Then I was being trafficked to
Did you,
Mackinac.
Kathy, did you feel the despair of all of this, or were you just kind of already starting into that robotic, just this is my life, this is just what I do? I mean, what was your internal, like, how were you feeling going through all of this?
And remember that my last free thought was wishing that there was a place in the world where people didn't hurt each other, because it was contrary to my being all along. It was contrary to my innate human nature. And
Mhm.
because it is contrary to it, that's why they use mind control. They use mind control on people who do not have a natural capacity for that kind of sheer evil. And I certainly did not have it. And so mind control was used at that point. And
Mhm.
mind control is used because these perpetrators fear the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. Without free thought, there's no free will. With no free will, there's no soul expression.
Mhm.
Without soul expression, we lose our moral compass. We lose our ability to gather the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love to live our life's purpose the way that it's intended to be lived in light of love and care and compassion and and innately who we all are inside. It's on
Mhm.
that level of love that we all connect. And they want us divided. They feed off of negativity and fear. They feed off of hatred and trauma. They want us divided and kept away from each other. And all this has been imposed now through the controlled media for generations. And again, what we're seeing isn't new. What's new is that we're seeing it, and
Mhm.
awareness is the first step towards
Mhm.
positive, necessary change. We can all heal from mind control after 30 years of torturous scientific robotic MK Ultra mind control. I still was able to heal. We all can heal no matter what life throws at us. What happens to us is not who we are, and we all still have the ability to go within and find who we were intended to be all along, what our true life's purpose is. And this is a time now where this great awakening is happening, and people are remembering who they
Mhm.
are and why
Mhm.
they are here.
This great awakening for you, I mean, and for myself, my awakening started because I was trying to understand why do we elect people, they get into office and then they totally change. They start doing the opposite of what we've elected them to do. And I was sharing with you before we started, when I started getting involved in my kids' schooling and education and learning about school boards, I just really realized they're not caring about what's happening with these kids. They're not. They're caring about what is bringing them in money, what's keeping them in their position, but they're not considering the consequences of kids not being able to read, not being able to be really thriving and contributing citizens in their communities and adding value to the public. I mean, they're not able to do that. I mean, our kids can't even read right now. There was a stat saying 33% of our kids are illiterate, but that is very low. In the state of Colorado, I can tell you right now, almost 80% of kids can't do math on grade level. Almost 80% of kids can't read on grade level. Forget critical thinking. They don't. That's not even in the picture right now. So when you look at that, you're like, what's going on? So will you take us back to Gerald Ford becomes your handler essentially? And I want to remind everybody we are live here with Cathy O'Brien, and we are discussing 30 years of being under MK Ultra programming and being used to serve the whims of. I like how you said that. I think that's true. The shadow government, this globalist government that we know does not care about us. We're eaters. We're bottom feeders. You just need to listen to Noah Harari, and you'll see exactly what he thinks of us. He's the picture of that movement. And so what did your life how old are you at this time when you're getting into the occult rituals and they're starting to take you into this higher level of a use your usefulness to them started to moving into these upper echelons of political world.
And the MK Ultra aspect of it, about 5, 6 years old, and I was taken to Mackinac Island, Michigan, where the governor's mansion is located, and where the local politicians that were involved in this globalist agenda would share secrets. I met Pierre Trudeau there when I was 9 years old and was sexually assaulted by him. He was an MKultra mind control expert of individuals and nations.
And
And
that's supposed to be Justin Trudeau's father, but we all
yes,
know that's not his father, but let's pretend, you know.
yeah, it's raised by him just the same. And he was very
Mhm.
much for the pedophile agenda. His wife, Maggie Trudeau, was considered to be a presidential model, just like I was, and used in MKultra. So she was prostituted out. No telling who Justin's real father really is. I think we all have a pretty good clue. But nevertheless, it was because of the MKultra aspect of it. And Justin Trudeau has uh, uh, is a good example of how they've kept it in family lines in order to perpetuate this, because there are not that many people on the planet who would cooperate with this slave society agenda. And it's an illusion is created through mind control and media manipulation, informing our perceptions on people. So at Mackinac Island, Michigan, I also met who had become my owner in MKultra Mind Control, U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was Democrat and Ford was Republican, but it didn't matter. They had the same agenda, and it was a globalist agenda. Mackinac Island, Michigan was the Epstein Island of its time. Blackmail tapes were used because these perpetrators do not trust each other either, and they hold each other by the blackmail, so to speak. So these blackmail tapes have been around a long time, my whole life. And then the next Epstein Island was Bohemian Grove. And then it was throughout the Caribbean, setting up the Epstein Island aspect of things. We got the Hollywood aspect with the Diddy tapes that's coming to light. And what is so important to understand about that as we look at that, and they name the names of who's involved, they're naming MKultra victims and victimizers alike in these videos, because as I just told you, I was used in them my whole life in MKultra mind control. So these blackmail tapes, I was used in them right up until 1988, when Intelligence Insider Mark Phillips lifted my daughter and me out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp. And I
How
wanted
did
to
that
know.
how did that happen? Because Mark Phillips, by the way, rest in peace. What an incredible man.
Yes.
I love when he said, so Mark Phillips was not CIA necessarily, but he was certainly in the circles there, or is he? Would he formerly have been? I couldn't really judge based off of his testimony. They used him obviously to do things, but he said if he had ever been really brought in, he thinks he would have been a whistleblower because it was so contrary. He had a conscience. That's why they didn't recruit him the same way that they have other CIA agents who've been willing to do these things. I think about the group. It's named in the Franklin scandal. A CIA group that had these children and was. I'm trying to think what they're called. It's not the hand. It's the.
You
Gosh,
thinking
it's
of
going
the
to come.
finders?
The Finders. Thank you. Those were CIA agents, and somehow they have all these little kids and they're taking them from house to house, party to party. They're filming things, and obviously nothing ever happened to them. There's a tremendous story about that in the Franklin Scandal book, you guys. But he is stood by you, not only stood by you, but has helped you along all these years, and just went home not too long ago. And I was very sad to see that for you, especially. But what happened exactly that he was able to get to you? What was that catalyst to pull you out of that? And how were you even able to do that after 30 years of abuse? I mean, full immersion. According to your testimony, you were working with presidents, even Ronald Reagan, which people
And
don't want to talk about
the,
this.
the Clintons, and that's about as
Clintons.
horrific as it gets. But Mark
Yeah.
Phillips was an intelligence insider working the highest levels of intelligence mind sciences. And anything when he would speak out publicly was limited, because he was bound by laws of sedition. As working the highest levels of mind sciences, preserving the sanctity of free thought, An amazing man. He could wear any hat. He could wear CIA, NSA, um, FBI. He could wear um, Secret Service, anything he needed to be, because he was that high in intelligence. And what he saw going on within those agencies was so appalling to him. He saw how mind control was being used on individuals like myself, how mind control was being used on the whole population. And he also saw children being taken in and out of the White House, and he was livid. He was disgusted at the blackmail operations that were going on, how these pedophile blackmail tapes were being used to compromise judges and people in high positions of power and influence. He wasn't the only one. There were many people in intelligence, there still are, who are very concerned over what was going on and wanted to do what they could to make a positive difference. So Mark decided in 1988 to lift my daughter and me right out of the Washington, D.C. swamp, and handed me keys to my own mind. Both of us were determined to expose who held those tapes, the ones at the top, these global puppet masters who are manipulating nations, manipulating individuals, and blackmailing people all the way and holding them by that blackmail, rather than know the flight logs and who's in the videos. I want to know who's holding them. That's who we need to expose. That's who needs to be brought down. That will be the ultimate justice when people are aware of that, and we can stop this from ever happening again.
What was that
Ultimate.
catalyst for you, Kathy? You talk about your daughter. I believe her name's Kelly.
Mhm.
And what was the catalyst that you were able to leave all of that? I'm not saying it was smooth waters. And if you want to share a little bit about that, I mean, the multiple attempts on your life and on Mark Phillips' life, even Ted Gunderson when he started speaking out. Just, I mean, they were coming for all of you guys. What happened though that pulled you? You said Mark pulled you out, but you were at a turning point in your life there.
Yes, I was 30 years old, and that is a time when our natural mind brain function, we get electrochemical changes in our brain, and very often repressed memory surfaces at a time like that. And we can look back and apply that to and infamous Disney MKultra slave Britney Spears when she turned 30 and shaved her head, and they ended up reprogramming her. Well, in my case, I was at that point, and I was to be killed with the information at Bohemian Grove. I was to be sacrificed there. That's what the sacrifices are about: is getting rid of the MK Ultra slaves before they can think to tell the secrets. And that's where Mark Phillips intercepted me and my daughter and took us to safety. And he handed me keys to my own mind. Many people think Mark deprogrammed me. He did not. It's within us all to heal. We have the most resilient body, mind, and spirit. We have this capacity for healing no matter what life throws at us. And he reminded me of that. We all have been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves, to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult to cult religion to tell us how to live our lives, when in fact, we've been blessed with a divine capacity for that all along. And Mark reminded me of that. And he told me, he said, and that just like my brain, I couldn't think to know I was even safe with Mark. I didn't know good people even existed in the world by the time he came along. But my brain knew, just like it knew my father's abuse was wrong, my brain knew I was safe. Plus being 30. So my memories were starting to intrude on my present. They were coming forward. And Mark told me, he said, write out your memories, write out what you're seeing. Pick up a pen and paper and write it out. The very act of moving a pen activates the logic, critical analysis part of the brain. So it would take this emotionally incomprehensible repressed memory, shift it over to the logic part of the brain, where it's written out on paper in front when consciously seen, and all of a sudden, neuron pathways in the brain are opening back up again. And as the healing happens with psychiatrically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything comes back together all at once. And free thought starts to come back in as we deal with what happened in our past. When we understand this mind brain function, we can see that to stop the indoctrination of children in the school system, all we got to do is get writing by hand back in the school system. Activates the logic, critical analysis part of their brain, and all of a sudden they're learning how to think again instead of being told what to think. And this is an important little
Yeah.
brain hack, mind hack tool that we all can use that
This is
Mark
like the idea of
gave us all.
journaling. I mean,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
this would be the
Mhm,
purpose. I've journaled
mhm.
almost all of my life, and I
Wonderful.
swear, yeah. I mean, I read a book when I was like in fifth grade, and this girl journaled in the book, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna start journaling, and I started journaling from there on out. But I didn't realize I didn't know the connection
Wow.
there, but I know the power of writing things down and how
Hmm.
you can work it out on paper versus having to be so destructive in your life when you go back to, I want to talk about this for just a moment. Um, Byrd, Senator Byrd. Senator Byrd was a mentor to Hillary Clinton. She says that she spoke at
Hmm.
his funeral. He was a KKK leader.
Yep.
She said he was the primary mentor in her life and looked up to him immensely. Swears he was a wonderful man. The people that you ended up working for I don't exactly even know the best phrase to say that. I mean, what do you call it, Kathy, when you're being turned over to these people to and what was the particular mission or reason why you were turned over to um, uh, whether it was the Clintons or Ronald Reagan or whoever else they had you serving, what was the purpose behind doing that? Just to get blackmail?
In many cases, yes, and to deliver messages to and from government leaders. They thought what better place to hide government secrets than in the mind of someone who can't think to bring it to mind unless it's triggered.
Mhm.
So that's how they operated back then. This was before everybody had cell phones and cameras and and all like
Mhm.
that. So this method of operation is what I was used in to carry out their bidding on the drug ops, the Clinton CIA cocaine ops, and the horrific human trafficking ops. Everything that they were setting up was something that I witnessed. I witnessed and had to work the 1984 Governors Convention for Senator Byrd because Senator Byrd held our country's purse strings and he had made the states reliant on federal funding for the school system. That's when the Department of Education came into being. Yes, President Trump dissolved that Department of Education because they gave us global education, Common Core, indoctrination of our children, the erosion of truth in history, the manipulation of minds of generations now in that school system. And Senator Byrd was setting it up. And so I had to work that 1984 Governors Convention to put that in. Ever since I have been free um, to think for myself and speak out, I've been speaking out since 1990 at least. And man, I just spoke out so strong against this global education. And parents were aware of it and starting to homeschool back then too. So, this is absolutely horrific. And as I was remembering the things that I was forced to participate in, I told Mark, I said, I don't know how I can live with myself after what I've done. And he said, you are not responsible for what you were programmed to do under mind control.
Mhm.
And that is so powerful to know. And then he told me, he said, but now that you're aware, you're responsible for all your actions going forward. And it was
Mhm.
like, oh, it felt like such a free slate, moving forward. Okay, everything I do is going to be with love. Everything I do is going to be true to soul. Everything is going to be with the strength of the human spirit in absolute truth and
Mhm.
rooted in my life's purpose. So I had that opportunity then. And if everybody thinks on that, what they did when mind control masters of virus was unleashed on the
Yeah.
global population, people are just struggling horribly with the results of what they complied with what they were forced to comply with, and they have a great deal of difficulty dealing with that guilt. They do not need to feel guilt. They need to understand mind control. Knowledge is our defense against it. And just like Mark told me, he said, my abusers are the ones that need to be held accountable. We need to hold, that's the same abusers. We need to hold them accountable for their crimes against humanity. That
And,
needs to happen.
and it does. In 1977, and again, for those who are just joining in, there's a lot of questions in the chat right now. So we have had the unbelievable fortune and pleasure to host Cathy O'Brien today. She is an MKultra survivor. MKultra was a government-funded program that actually sought to figure out how to control the brains and the minds of our citizens and people all over the world so that they could be used for the government to do whatever it is that they wanted them to do. And in 1977, there was a congressional inquiry done. This is a public hearing that was done, and you all can go and research this and watch it. We also, the CIA was actually exposed by the Canadian government when they had to pay off 9 people, I believe, or it may have been as many as 12, at least that we know of, that were willing to come forward, who had been victims of the MKultra program without their knowing. They did not know what was going on to them. They did not know they were being used for any kind of experiments by the American government, the US government. They didn't know until their brains were completely fried. They made the mistake of having one of their experiments be on a senator's wife. And that is what ended up exposing the CIA and what they were doing to citizens. But it doesn't even scratch the surface of what the CIA has been doing to people. What is it called? LSD. I'm like, I'm so amazed that we're actually having this conversation, Cathy. I just can't even believe it. But the introduction of that was specifically to open up the brain and to be able to control what was going on with people. There was a Johns and prostitute program where they were having the prostitutes come in and entertain these Johns. They would give them LSD and then they would just lose their minds. Just disgusting, just abhorrent behavior by our own government, by the CIA specifically. Now, when we're talking about, guys, just those of you who are tuning in, this 1977 congressional inquiry is really, really significant because it validated and verified that MKultra had been going on. Now, they declared Nixon declared that the program was over. Is it over?
Wow. It did. Well, it just went underground, and Bill Clinton held hearings in 1995, supposedly, to say again, "Oh no, it's over," and it's just illusions of lie. But the 1977 one was very important because it finally opened people's minds to the possibility that it could even exist. They'd never heard of it until then. So it's ongoing on a global scale, but people are waking up from it. They're realizing it. And it's an amazing time to see that finally happening. My 1995 testimony for Congress, of course, was censored under national security because it exposed Bill and Hillary Clinton, among so many others. And that testimony is in Transformation of America. And when people read it and realize it was written in 1995, they'll see how it has played out today, right down to who was going to be put in the office of president for ushering in this globalist New World Order agenda. Our elections have been rigged since the inception of electronic voting machines that came into play in the wake of the Kennedy assassination, which is when the shadow government, these perpetrators, took control of the US government and the minds of the population. And that was through repetitive media narrative. And it was a time when people were very vulnerable. So they put in the rigged elections so that they could place key people in key positions in order to usher in this new world order. Hillary Clinton was to have ushered it in 2016. And instead, so many of us were awake and aware that we overrode the rigged electronic algorithm to elect a president who was not Hillary Clinton and her new world order, a president who showed us there's a swamp in DC, a president who showed us that there was a globalist agenda and a sexualization of our children going on with a funding mechanism of drug and human trafficking across open borders. People began waking up. And that was a monumental occasion. And they hadn't expected that we could override that rigged algorithm. So 2020, they were ready for us to override it and ushered and used the mind control masked as a virus to blatantly steal elections right in front of us all and usher in their globalist agenda. Too many of us were awake and aware, though, and it continues to grow. We already passed critical mass. We're already there. So now we have elected a president again who is not cooperating with the New World Order, and we have an opportunity in front of us to take back our communities and take back our sovereignty, our personal sovereignty, and our national sovereignty. It's not going to be easy, and we can't count on government to drain the swamp for us. It's up to all of us to drain it from the bottom up. It can't be drained from the top down. But we have an opportunity in front of us again. And I'll say that in my experience in MKUltra mind control around these perpetrators, I knew in the mid 80s that they feared Donald Trump back then. They feared him.
Tell us about this, because again, you have been exposed to world leaders, the former presidents in America. They were two birds, or two wings of the same bird. That if people leave this conversation not getting anything, please get that they've
Yeah.
been two wings of the same bird. And then, and your opinion is what I care about when it comes to Donald Trump. Lay it all out for us.
Well, he wouldn't cooperate. He was against drug and human trafficking across the open border back then. He was adamantly against MKUltra mind control, and especially the way it was being used through the State Department, the CIA, and the various agencies.
So you know that he knows about this program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he knew all about MKUltra mind control to the point where he had the knowledge that's our defense against it. And he was like Mark Phillips and so many others that cannot be manipulated because we have the awareness. We evolve with knowledge that's our defense against mind control. We recognize it. We don't cooperate with it. We stop it wherever we can. And Donald Trump could not be bought off. He had his own money. He couldn't be compromised. He couldn't be blackmailed. He couldn't be. They couldn't control him in any way. He was just adamantly opposing their globalist agenda and what they were doing to humanity. So it's amazing. We've got an opportunity in front of us now. We're going to see the dismantling of this corrupt system, but we need to protect our children now. We can't wait for the system to clean up and protect them for us. It's not going to work that way. We need to evolve with the knowledge and realize our own power, and that it is up to us. And that is what we have going on right now, is the power is being returned to the people. The power is being returned to the states, so that the states can return it to the communities, so that parents can go into the school system and say, no, you're not going to indoctrinate and sexualize my children without the FBI coming in on them and arresting them for protecting their children. No more. We've got an opportunity in front of us, and it's an exciting time. Understanding mind control is key.
Thank you. What do you think? So you talked about, because it was done on a mass scale. You talk about John F. Kennedy when he was assassinated. That was a mass trauma experience that ushered in unbelievable changes for America. Johnson, one of the biggest murderers. Talk about government gangsters. The guy was just a prolific murderer. We could just go on and on about how horrendous that man is, and the legacy that he's left behind, and this trajectory that he took America into. That's the first big event of trauma. And then here we are in 2020, and we have this massive unbelievable experience again, where the government, we're now finding out, they were at the helm of all of this. They abused us. They you guys, is the largest transfer of wealth in
Yeah.
history for just a few, while the rest of us continue to suffer and struggle and try to dig our way out. When you're talking about, because you're so focused on healing, and I want everybody just to take notes, transformation.com, you're going to want to go check it out. I posted the book up a little bit ago. I will post that back up again too. Um, what is the first, maybe you talked about journaling. I am with you there. Start writing things down. What else, if you could say, have been are the most effective tools for helping people break free away from their cognitive dissonance with how bad government can be and has been, and that we have this personal responsibility like you're talking about? I agree with you so much. I know that people want to blame, 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 and I get it. I'm right there with you. I mean, I do it all day long. I get it. I'm here. That's true, but that's not empowering. And that doesn't bring about the change that has to happen in each one of us to, like you said, take advantage of this moment in history right now. So how do you start to work with people who have been so victimized and traumatized to be in a position like you are now?
Well, the healing methods Mark taught me are on my website at trance-formation.com. And it's easy to self-apply. There's so many little tips that can be used, like getting out in nature and feeling the sun on your skin, feeling the earth beneath your feet, hearing nature. Get away from devices for a while. Shut off mainstream media news. Follow the money. It's going to go to the same handful of puppet masters. Look at all the advertisement we're bombarded with on mainstream media. It's pharmaceutical. We've got to understand that if we follow the money, we're going to get to who these puppet masters are, and that's a very important key. But we need to shut off their media voice, get away from it, get out in our communities, talk to each other, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul. Look back and start reevaluating what we think we know, because our knowledge base has been altered a long time. We need to expand our thinking. And when we do, it actually gets encouraging, because we look back at Gerald Ford when he was put in the office of president as a reward for covering up the Kennedy assassination. He headed the Warren Commission. And then we look at Ford's cabinet. He had George Bush Sr., head of the CIA, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, who gave us aspartame, the artificial sweetener that causes us to lose critical analysis free thought. He had Rockefeller. He had Henry Kissinger, and people can research for themselves. It was the first depopulation agenda. They put it together. They put it together. The two of them, and people can research that. He had Jack Valenti, head of the Motion Picture Association of America, as his press secretary. Jack Valenti at that time manipulated all the information we were able to see out of Hollywood. He decided what news we were going to watch. And that's when we were given the one bullet theory. And anybody who questioned it was called a conspiracy theorist. We were shamed if we questioned the media narrative, And so we look back and say, oh, the same agenda, the same people. It's the same ones over and over and over and over. And it gets encouraging to realize this dark, negative energy force of puppet masters have no business meddling in our brilliant minds and lives anymore. This is our time. We are by far the majority. We're awake and aware now. We can face this truth, because the truth really does make us free. And when we look at the truth and reality of it all, truth frees us from fear. And once we're freed from that fear, we can move forward. And so it's easy to start opening our eyes and facing that reality, and realize that anything that is overwhelming, anything that is a fear to us, or anything that's immobilizing us, pick up a pen and paper, write it out. Write out those fears, write out those traumas, write out what's immobilizing you, and then add a solution. because Mark taught me voice no negatives without a solution. If you add a solution, and I spell it with a SOUL, if you add that solution, you're forcing your brain to think in new ways again. You're lifting out of that dark negativity. You're forcing your brain to open up. Mind control shuts down neuron pathways. We're wanting to open them up. So exercise your mind. Think beyond what you think you know, because there's a whole lot more to discover. Mark always said, we're all so much smarter than we think. And he meant it literally. And we can expand that thinking. We can think further. We can, once we embrace that truth, we realize our power again. And we realize that it's up to us to protect our children going forward. And what an amazing time to finally see that. I've waited a lifetime for this, and it's finally happening.
I really appreciate how you elevate everyone and you want to empower people with the same empowerment that you have received. And yet you're very unique, Cathy. And a lot of people that are, or the people largely that have experienced to a degree what you experienced, have not been able to come forward like you have, and have not been able to necessarily heal. I've watched many testimonies and talked with many people who've come from at least ritual abuse and sexual abuse, and yet that's what captivated me when I saw you speaking in 1996, was that you had maintained your innocence somehow. You had maintained this positive outlook. You had maintained this uh, like a just a wholesomeness that I don't usually see when I'm talking with someone who's been a survivor of sexual assault or abuse like this. And so, what do people need to understand about you specifically in this journey that you think might have helped you or been responsible for where you are at right now?
Well, it definitely heal first before speaking out, because otherwise we exhibit vulnerabilities and can be steered um, or really really brought down. So it's important to heal first, and I'm so grateful I had Mark to remind me of that, because by the time I was healing and my daughter and I were safe, Mark was just amazing person, and I loved him so much. And he wouldn't have anything to do with me. He said, you got to heal first. You have to know who you are to have something to give in a relationship. And that was a great motive to heal even faster. So, I went within, and it's like, I didn't know how to love myself after what I'd been forced to do. And yet people were saying, you got to love yourself. And it's like, you can't love yourself through a daily affirmation from the outside in. So I went to the depths of my being, to the base core energy of my being. And I find that energy is love. So I decided I'll live the love I am. And that was so much easier than trying to love myself. Just live my
Mhm.
true energy, my divine alignment with source, my divine connection, and its most beautiful way to live love. And
Mhm.
when I did that, then I knew who I am. I recognized my life's purpose, why I'm here,
Mhm.
and chose to move forward that way. So when we do that, it's a giant step forward for all of us. When we get to a point where dealing with the past is one thing, but being able to move forward in light of love and purpose, with all that we were intended to be. That's who we are, true to soul. That's who we are with strength of spirit. When we see a little infant and they're born so innocent, so pure, and it's like they're still aligned with the divine.
Yeah.
They got that infinite love. They've got the connection. They're just being that. You know, no one can touch that. These, not even
Mhm.
Satanists, not even perpetrators, they cannot touch it, because they can't affect that energy. They can't. That's our ultimate power. That's our ultimate source. It's our victory. It's where we win. It's where they lose, and they know it. That's why they use mind control, to stop us from being able to think, to live that, to be able to think, to make that connection and choose to live life that way. So in that regard, I never even lost my childhood, because the purity of who we are is always there within us. And What happens to us in life is not who we are. Who we are is who we are intended to be all along with strength of spirit. So
Yeah.
that is a giant step in healing. It's one that I look forward to sharing more and more with people, because so many have dealt with their past and they're wondering, how do I go forward with joy? And it's like, oh, it's so perfect because it's within us all, of course, to have that. Even people who've been beat down by society or bombarded with the negative media traumas, or
Mhm.
you know, every one of us has the capacity to go within, remember who we are and why we're here.
Cathy O'Brien, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us and giving us your time and your amazing energy in this, incredible story. And it just makes everything make sense of what's happened to us, what's happened to America. This is our story right alongside
Yes.
you. So thank
Yes.
you so much. The book is called Transformation. I encourage everybody to go get it. And please check out her website at trans-formation.com. Cathy O'Brien, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Well, does it all make sense now? Do you understand what's been going on? You understand that we're only just scratching the surface, but I'm so grateful that so many of you stuck with us and are willing to hear this new information. I know this is not something that we normally discuss on here, that we normally talk about, but you have to get to the seed. Like Cathy said, you have to get to the heart of the situation of what's happening here. And as she was talking, I was thinking about the NEA and the National Education Association and the effort by our federal government to take control in our local level of what our kids are learning, how they're learning, the STAR testing. We had Jeff. It's going to take me a second. Sorry. It's coming to me in just a minute here. But he is the father whose son has been taken from him and is 12 years old now and is going to be castrated by his mother in California. And he was telling us exactly what is going on with the testing, how they're trying to see if what they're doing is working. Are they moving your child more into a slave? Are they traumatizing them enough? Are they inflicting their LGBTQIA sexual grooming onto your child enough? Is it working? That's what those tests are for. It's not to figure out if they've learned well, I guess it is to figure out if they've learned the curriculum, but not in a positive way, not in advancing for our society and our communities, you guys. We've got to wake up. And I think I didn't ask the question, but maybe Cathy can answer. And I'll ask her this. For you parents out there who are seriously struggling, and I am struggling with this now too, because we've moved into this wonderful small community and we want to be a part of the community. But I hear my kids talking about the hours that are spent on things that don't matter, and they're just teaching to a test, or they're learning to a test rather, and it's not information that they even care about or is going to move them along in their future. I know, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, what does this matter? How does this really help them be successful in life and understand real history and what's really happened? So I'm with you guys in the struggle to figure out what is in the best interest of your child and do that thing. But I can tell you, by and large, you know, it's no good. It is a brainwashing setup. And we take our kids and we funnel them there every single day for 8 hours. And then we wonder why they don't love this country. We wonder why they don't want to have children. We wonder why they don't know if they're male or female. We wonder why they don't believe in God or a higher power at all. We wonder all these things, but we've taken them to this facility that is purposely trying to destroy their soul. And I think that's my biggest takeaway today is this is a system that's been built up and designed to destroy your very soul. When people say they just want to kill us, it's more than that. They want to literally destroy our soul, the thing that is supposed to be eternal in us. So I want to thank you guys again so much for being with us today. This was I'm just floored. You think things can't happen. You think that good things cannot happen to you and for you. Put your head down, guys. Get to work. Save your communities. Save your own children. They are your responsibility. It can happen. It will happen. And I think seeing Cathy be so optimistic after being in this battle since 1988, when she realizes what's actually going on and what she's being freed from, that's a long time to be watching for freedom, to be watching for relief to come. And please keep in mind her perspective on President Trump, too. She would know. She would know. And we need to be doing everything we can on a local level to forward that agenda to free the heart, the mind, and the soul of the American people, and therefore free the whole world. And it's going to be a battle. They're not going to go away quietly. These deep state Satanists, they're not going to go away quietly. So keep that in mind as we work through the next couple of months and years together. I hope this was a great awakening for you. Please let me know in the comments if you have gotten the book. You need to go get the book, continue to educate yourself, and then get the Franklin Scandal after that. Thank you guys. God bless you all for being with us and sticking this out today. I just can't think how more appropriate that quote really is, that evil truly does prevail only when good men and women are unwilling to do anything about it. Thank you so much for being with us today.